In recent years, we've seen everything from country singer Willie Nelson's braids and Elvis Presley's underwear to Harry Styles' cherry red Gibson guitar and an extremely rare US Constitution copy sold at auction for huge sums. And the interest just seems to continue to grow. But what exactly is the driving force behind the collection of celebrity items that are sold for millions every year? Today, we meet a man who has had some of the world's foremost historical collectibles in his hands. Alexander Bitar, founder of Alexander Bitar History. You are both a collector and trade in what yourself call history artifacts. What got you interested in these historical objects that once belonged to famous people?
Well, I would say it's a combination out of two interests.
Yeah.
Number one is business and number two is history. And if you combine that, then you sell history, which is pretty much what I'm doing.
And when you say history, history can be anything from a war document to a watch owned by a famous actor. Or...
Yeah, for me, it's more about important historical items or artifacts. So more into the high-end segment. But,
and what is that? Is that depending on who is the most famous or in what do you say, circumstance that items has been used? Or
I would say both. Yeah, in some cases it's only the name. So I could sell anything that Marilyn Monroe has owned, even though it's not important per se. But otherwise it could be something related to the Second World War without a connection to one of the great names. So it could be both.
And when you say that about Marilyn Monroe, is that because she's such a star worldwide and that all generations know about? Or
yeah, I would say probably she's the biggest one out there. The greatest icon of all time, I would say. If I have to pick one, it's got to be Monroe.
And what would you say are the characteristics of historical documents and celebrity objects or artifacts? What does make them interesting enough to be sold as collectibles?
Well, to put it like this, history belongs to the past. History is yesterday and the day before that, and so on. And if we take someone like John Lennon, he passed away in 1980. That's more than 40 years ago. How can we be close to the great John Lennon? Well, we can listen to his music, we can see images online, there are documentaries, there are footage, but to really be close to him, I'd say it's to own something that he owned. Because it's something magical with those items. Because let's take a guitar, which would probably be the best example. To have a guitar that John Lennon owned, in which he created these iconic songs. I mean, you get close to someone who hasn't been around for 40 years. And, it's if someone out there that's listening now that owns these type of items, they know what I'm talking about. If not, I mean, it's difficult to explain it. But again, you get close to someone in a way that you can't otherwise.
If I can do the comparison, but it's a little bit like being in a museum, looking at a painting, or being in a house or a home where the artist was making this, or an atelier or a studio. You get a completely another feeling, actually. I guess that's a little bit the same.
Yes, indeed. And also the fact that you own a piece of history.
True.
That's a great difference, I would say. Because if we're on like British Museum right now, they have many Paul McCartney's handwritten lyrics to, Hey Jude and Let It Be and such. It's one thing to go there and look at them. I mean, that's a great experience in my opinion. But to be the owner of it, you get such a great responsibility to preserve history. And that's, for me, it's the next level, to own history.
For you, it's more about a historical interest and then making part in a celebrity's glamorous life, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in both ways, I would say. Like, I've sold jewelries of Elvis Presley, for example. That is something you could wear. You mentioned watches. I have right now a couple of watches with, historical provenance. Again, that's something I could wear right now. So some items you can use and, pretend that you are Elvis Presley, if you will. And some items is more of, you can frame them at home, you can present them and such. I mean, it's beautiful presentation pieces, I'd say.
Yeah. But how generational is it? I mean, will future generations be interested in Charlie Chaplin's cane or Neil Armstrong's moon boots that gave this historical imprints on the moon surface? Or, will they be remembered for the next generations?
I'd say the strongest will always survive. If we look at classical composers, we know of Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, and a few others. But the vast majority, we don't know of them at all. So it's like with everything, the strongest will survive. So Charlie Chaplin, he is the number one in terms of still movies, and he will always be that number one. It's like, Buster Keaton is on second place, but he's still so far away from Charlie Chaplin. And at third place, I mean, can you even mention someone? It's like, again, the strongest will survive. So Neil Armstrong, he'll always be the first man on the moon. So he will always be this iconic, important human being.
Then I wonder, how do you see the future of this? Because, I mean, historically, as you said, Neil Armstrong was the first man to land on the moon. I remember my father was telling me when he was up that night, seeing this spectacular thing on TV, I guess black and white TV at that time. But everyone was watching that. Today, it's very rare that the whole world is sitting watching the same thing today, when we are having all the social media, different channels, streaming TVs, Netflix, HBO, etc., etc. Would that change the way of celebrity and will someone be number one, as you described it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's so much more content today than it was a few years ago, of course. And for each year, I would say, there are more celebrities, with influencers and everything. So it's much more to choose between. But again, there will still be top names. Let's look at actors today. For me, DiCaprio is number one. And he will go down as one of the all-time greats. And a few others, of course. And the same way, the vast majority will not be remembered because there's so many that are coming out every day, pretty much.
So how do you think the market would change over time? I mean, we talked about it a bit, but when it comes then to the market and the value of the market, etc., do you think it will grow?
Yes, indeed. No doubt at all. Because this is a fairly new, collectible category, if I may say so. If we look at the art market or antiques, that's been around for hundreds of years. But celebrity-owned items, that's almost a new thing. Like 25, 30 years ago, it became something. And it's still establishing. And I'd say, I love to look at auction results for like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And it's always so cheap. And I know for a fact that in 5 years, we will look back at today's prices and we will feel the same because it's not an established market yet worldwide. So I'd say the interest will go up.
Can negative publicity affect the value? And if so, how?
Yes, I mean, it could. We have one example of Michael Jackson, who was in a bit of trouble a few years ago. And I would say at that time, the value went down a bit. But he's so big. He's probably one of the top 3 greatest singer-songwriters of all time. I mean, you could argue about that, but what he did, his impact is so massive, and the songs are timeless. So, I mean, give it 5-10 years and people will not. I don't think the value will go down if you look at, a long time frame. But yeah, some things can make the value change for a short amount of time. But if they are one of the all-time greats, then that will not have a great impact long term, I think.
So his music will survive his reputation about the nasty things he did.
I mean, his music is so much bigger than he is. And you can't argue with that. That's fact.
Does NFT qualify into this category?
It's actually funny that you mention it, because Julian's Auctions, which I think you know of, just announced 2 days ago that they will offer some items that John Lennon's son, owns. So it's 6 items. One of which is, it's 3 guitars that he was gifted from his father, and 3 other items. And, it's only an image of the guitar. So this is something new. I don't know the outcome, but it's very interesting to see.
And they will sell that as NFTs then?
Yes, an image of the item. So that's
interesting. But I mean, we talked about historical documents like war documents, etc. But that in the future might be that an NFT of Elon Musk's first tweet will actually be a historical document to a collector, right?
Yes, I mean, we the people are establishing value, and we are the ones who dictates what is important and what is not. So yeah, I mean, that would be a historical valuable asset in some kind of way.
But I guess also that treasure hunt will look differently in just a generation, just a few years' time compared to today, when NFT is, of course, is very interesting. It will be there for the future, but it's also very speculative, of course. Yeah. So I guess the categories will kind of settle, or the rules for the trading with the categories.
Yeah, I mean, this is a new thing, for 2 years ago. No one knew about NFTs. So I'm sure that in 2 years from now or 5 years from now, things will look so much different from today, because it's so new and people, it's not established at all. And it's very interesting to follow.
But you haven't started trading with it yet?
No, not yet. But I will probably, because I think it will be, a big thing in our life.
Most of the items are unique, but how can you value them?
Well, you always have, as I said, past auction results. So if I have, let's say, a protective passport of Raoul Wallenberg, I can go online, search for the item and see auction results. And that will indicate the value. If something like that sold for $10,000, I cannot ask $50,000 for it. I mean, it's not reasonable. And then again, you have to look at when was the auction result. Is it like 2 weeks ago, or is it 20 years ago? So that has an impact as well. And also you got to look at the item individually and look at the condition and the content and all of that. So, but you can get sort of a, estimate only by Googling it.
But what about, I guess there is also a collector's market that are not so transparent, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if we take myself as an example, if you go to my website, you will not find any prices at all. My social media or my books or anything. So I don't communicate about money. I rather do private sales than public sales. I mean, that's how I do. But of course, auction houses, they are public. And Yeah, I think in the end, a collector by both private and public.
No, I guess so. Who are the collectors and why do they collect this type of item?
I'd say the collector can be pretty much anyone because it's easy, if we only think of celebrity-owned items, it's easy to see the attraction of such a piece rather than antiques, because you got to know what you're doing if you want to buy antiques or art. I mean, sure, you can buy something that looks nice, but it's easier to connect with something that is connected to your hero. So I'd say pretty much everyone is a potential customer. But of course, as I said, I only deal with high-end pieces, so the value is rather high. And that is more for people that pretty much, if you have everything, then you want to have something that no one else has. And a one-of-a-kind piece is, the best alternative. And then we also have the investment point of view. As I said, I see my items as investments because it's mainly the biggest names or items connected to the biggest events. And I'm sure the value will go up in the future.
But can you see, I mean, since you're both selling celebrity items, but also, let's say you mentioned John Lennon or Elvis Presley, Marilyn Monroe, for example, but also the historical, like war documents. And can you see different audience depending on what it is? I guess someone that's collecting Marilyn Monroe maybe doesn't collect World War II items or documents. Or is it the same person?
On rare occasions, yes, but mainly I would say no. I only deal with, I deal a lot with watches as well. And in terms of watch buyers, I would say that they only buy watches pretty much. I mean, if you're a collector of anything, probably you'll collect something else as well. But I would say it's a clear, different type of buyer. But in the end, they pretty much have the same mentality and understand the value both as an investment and the historical value.
And is the audience global?
Yes, indeed. I'd say. I mean, when you work with the biggest names, it's something for everyone. But in some cases, I could sell something that's more into a niche, and in that case, it's more probably that it will go to a certain country.
And that is US, or who is the main collecting area?
I mean, the US is number one by far, but if I sell something connected to Swedish names such as Alfred Nobel or such, then I would say the interest is more in Sweden than worldwide, even though he is indeed a worldwide name.
What does the market look like? Are old men collecting war documents? I mean, we talked about it a bit, but is it old men collecting war documents while millennials, female millennials, collect dresses worn by Kim Kardashian, for example?
I mean, in a way, yes. I mean, if we look at manuscripts and documents, it's mainly men in, 50s and up. I'd say it's not so usual to see a 20-year-old collect Abe Lincoln documents, but but there's always exceptions, and that's the funny thing with it, because you can get surprised by a certain buyer or client or such.
Did this market open new doors for you? I mean, did you enter rooms and that you never been to before? I mean, did you meet people that you never thought that you would meet if you wouldn't have met them through these historical items?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's something that connects me with, as you said, people I wouldn't have met otherwise. So, and I'm approaching people pretty much all the time. And I have my items as, the key factor. This is what I have. Maybe it's of interest for you. So yes, it connects people.
If they know that you have an interesting piece, are they asking you for more, if you can find more to their collections? I mean, do you become like a consultancy almost as well, or?
Yeah, in some cases, yes. Mm-hmm. But in other cases, it's only one item and that's it. Mm. But I have a few people that are buying several pieces.
Yeah, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
If you were to put together all the relics from Jesus' cross that are considered to exist, you would probably end up with several hundred crosses. Is it difficult to ensure the provenance and documentation of this type of objects as you work with? I mean, how can you actually know that this belonged to John Lennon or whoever it is?
I'd say one critical element is, when was this item from? The further back you go in time, the more difficult it is. But, the authenticity is the most important thing, no doubt about that. And if I have something that's been owned by someone, then I gotta have enough documentation to prove that. And again, if it comes from the person himself, then that's pretty much the best type of provenance there is. Or if it's from, the wife or husband to the person in question, that's also very good. Like family provenance is very good. So, it's different types of provenance, I would say, but you gotta know what you're selling. And I always guarantee the authenticity on everything I sell with a lifetime guarantee. And that means that I gotta do a lot of research to actually for sure know that this is authentic. And, that's probably the most important task in my business, to establish provenance and authenticity.
So it's a lot of digging.
Yes, indeed. Mm-hmm. But often, you can get that from the seller because the provenance in some cases is already presented as it is. But still, you gotta verify it. You can't just trust anyone. And,
no, of course. One of the spectacular items you had for sale is Eisenhower's own document of the World War II surrender agreement. How does it feel to hold such as an important document in your hand that has been closer to the war than most other things in this world? I mean, the actual feeling when you see it.
I can't put words on it because it's the most important document of the 20th century. It's difficult to explain, but it's pretty much as important there is. I can't even think of a more game-changing and important document than the surrender agreement of the Second World War. So
that changed the world.
Indeed.
But so more. I want to know more about the feeling. But if you get it in your hands, do you go home? Do you sit down just an hour or two with a glass of red wine on your side and just, how do you say, breathe it in, if you understand what I mean? Or
I would say,
what was the feeling?
Like in the beginning, it was different because everything was so huge. It's like I had items that I couldn't even dream about, and that's items I don't look at today. So it's like the better items you get, the more you get that feeling. But when you are working with such items, like if you work at the museum, you're surrounded with these game-changing items. Like by the end of the day, if you're surrounded by it, it's more a part of your life, and it's not as excited as you got in the first place. In the first place, it's more of emotions. Now it's more of knowledge and understanding that, okay, this is incredible. And as I said, you gotta treat them very well. You can't play with it in the way that you could with insignificant pieces. So, yeah, I mean, it's still amazing. Every time I open a package, it's like, you got to experience it to actually know what I'm talking about, because it's difficult to put words on it.
What is the most interesting object you have come across so far?
Well, the agreement, as you said, is probably the greatest item. But yeah, I mean, it's so difficult to answer because it's so many like game-changing pieces, and yeah, like Nobel Prize medals are. The first one I got was, yeah, again, you can't. It's so difficult to talk about it because you're holding something that changed the world. I mean, it's the symbol of the act that changed the world. So, yeah, I mean, I can't really choose one item. It's impossible.
Do you have a dream item in your own collection?
Yes.
And that is?
So, I grew up with watching movies by Sergio Leone. So he did 3 movies with Clint Eastwood, and most notably Il Bueno, Il Brutto, Il Cattivo, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And in that movie and the other 2 movies, Clint Eastwood wears a poncho, which, it's the most significant costume in those movies. And for me, to own that item would be, I mean, that would be the end of the game, because nothing would top that item for me personally. And I know for a fact that he owns it still today. So I don't know if it will be available for sale, but who knows?
Yeah. In a couple of years' time, might be.
Maybe. I mean, it's not impossible, but I don't think so. I think it's will stay within the family.
So we talked about the war documents, we talked about the celebrity items, but there is one category that has increased enormously the last few years, and that's sports card. Are you dealing with that as well?
No, I haven't owned anything, and I haven't. I mean, I've thought about it because it's such a big, collectible category. So, but for me, it's still. I mean, I sell sports memorabilia sometimes, but I wouldn't sell sports cars because if we take one example, probably the most famous sports card is Michael Jordan's rookie card from 1986. And first of all, you gotta make it clear that there's so many different types of Michael Jordan cards, probably in the hundreds. And in terms of rookie cards, so it's his first season at the NBA. There's still a few of those, but one in particular is the most famous of them all. And if we look at that particular card, we gotta see at the condition of it. And PSA, that grades cards, the leading grading company, they do it from 1 to 10. So a 10, which is a mint condition, would sell for $400,000. And it's about 350 of those cards known to exist, maybe even more. So $400,000 for a piece of cardboard. Compare that to a jersey, a game-used jersey by Michael Jordan that he used with Chicago Bulls during his prime. That jersey sells for half the price of the card. And for me, that's a very clear, it indicates that it's not logical, because how can a piece of cardboard be more worth? I mean, how can that have a higher value than an actual jersey that he used?
No, exactly. So the difference is that the card he never used, he never owned it, but as you say, other items owned by him is much more interesting for you. Means also that the sentimental value is actually what you are trading quite a lot, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, that's a good definition of it. Because, as I said in the beginning, we, the collectors, the buyers, the sellers, we dictate what's valuable. And by some strange reason, we're now in a position where a card of his is more valuable than a jersey. And that's life.
But do you think that market then will drop, or you think it will continue?
No, it will definitely continue. No doubt. I mean, that card in particular, I'd say that's $1 million card in 5 years.
People are trading everything.
Yes.
There's no doubt that the interest in celebrity objects has increased dramatically in recent years. Personally, I think the market will explode thanks to NFT in the upcoming years. But if I get it right, the future will tell.